Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone. We are Court and Ob, and welcome to EnvironMental Podcast.
Yeah, welcome. This is our podcast where we deep dive into different aspects of sustainability, and then we just have really lovely conversations about it with folks that are working in the sustainability sector. If this is content that you like, please like and subscribe so that you end up back in your feed.
Yes, we'd appreciate it. We are stoked to be joined by Rianne Doller, who is the founder and teacher from Kickass Quilts, an awesome brand that was part of our Living Brand Directory. And we're so excited to actually sit down and chat with you more about what you do. So thank you for being here, Rianne.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Cool.
I always like telling about what I do.
Yes. Yeah. So let's dive into it. Yes. Can you tell us more about Kickass Quilts?
Yeah, Kickass Quilts has as mission to create a sustainable world where everybody feels welcome with the magic of quilting. And it's basically started out of my love of quilting with old clothes and creating all kind of crazy masterpieces with it, and also making quilting more relevant again for a younger public. Because I was a member of a quilting guild, but I was younger than people's grandkid often. And I thought it was not necessarily because people were not interested in doing things with their hands, but maybe the way people saw quilting was something that wasn't matching with what a younger public was looking for. So that's how it started.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So you're just reframing quilting for the younger population. I love it. And so you're teaching classes online, right?
Yeah, now I'm really focusing on creating products and ideas that I can do, because I'm now having a workspace at a recycling plant, basically, where they collect a lot of old textiles and stuff like that. So now I'm tapping into my inventor side to see what kind of old clothes I can use for what kind of quilt, because quilting in a way is very versatile, because you have, of course, the cottons for the top, but you also need a filling and almost all the kind of textiles you can use for something. And it's interesting because I'm doing that based on the tradition of quilting. So while I'm renewing quilting for a bigger audience, also a lot of the older people feel connected with it, because it's based on the tradition of reuse and telling stories with quilts and stuff like that. Yeah.
You're like helping them to pass down their knowledge, but without them having
and I'm
to
just
do the
making
work.
It my idea was maybe quilting will become more popular again if it has more a role in society, and that's why the sustainability became important.
Totally. I think framing it in that way is so awesome, and it's such a great way to reclaim textiles, which otherwise would be wasted, right? So are you using, I guess, how are you working towards kind of making quilting more sustainable?
Well, first, because I'm reusing the textiles that get basically thrown away and sometimes also donated. But that's not all of it, because there's so much being thrown away that it's not feasible to keep going on making quilts out of it. So I'm also hoping that when I make products and out of it, people will buy something lasting. So instead of maybe giving a child, when it gets born, like 20 stuffed toys, it will get one that's really meaningful. So people will also slowly reduce consumptions, because otherwise it's not feasible.
Yeah, that's something I find interesting when you start to think about sustainability and like incorporating sustainability into product businesses. It really becomes like a focus on consumerism and product quality. And that's something I really appreciate. But it's we're asking people to make a lifestyle change. And I think that's really the challenge, right? It's not so much is like, buy this really cool thing. It's buy this really cool thing and not 19 other things as well.
Yeah, that's
And
why it's the hardest challenge. But I think I try at least to focus on how embracing sustainability is not only about resources, because I think that's a very limited view on it. But to me, sustainability is creating a world where everybody is basically happier. So making those kind of choices are not only good for the planet, but it will also help you with your mental health and your connections and
yeah,
stuff like that. Because my focus is
yeah,
on people who are very sensitive for everything going around them. And I noticed for myself that having like so many clothes in my closet, I get super restless. I don't even know how to start dressing myself in the morning, for example. But if you have fewer items that are more meaningful, it sort of quiets down your life. And also, I have a quilt my mom made me when I was like 10, and it was 20 years ago. And because it's still good, I can totally ignore the need to buy blankets because I
yeah,
have. And that creates some kind of peace of mind, I notice. I think people are
yeah,
looking for, but maybe they don't know because you see mental health is not going well for many people. I think that could
yeah,
be part of it.
Yeah.
And also
yeah.
having the meaningful quilts, you can share fabrics or make them together, like use the pens from all your friends. And then also you have more connection with community. And I think that's also
Yeah.
something people look for, which traditionally was also quilting. So it's much more than only resources. It has to be more. There has to be meaning to it, I hope. And then people will slowly start changing because it makes them more, it makes it more worth living, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's easier to make those changes when you are in a community of people who
Yeah.
are like-minded, right? Who are also making those changes in their
And
life.
people are looking for nice things because when you are too hard on climate change, people will drift away because they don't want to feel bad even more than they already do. So it has to be better. It has to be nicer somehow. You
Yeah.
cannot force anyone to change. It has to be the better
Right.
option at some point.
Yeah. And I also imagine that because you're helping people with a skill and learning to create their own, there's a meaning that comes with and an appreciation that comes with sitting and doing the movement, you know, over
Yeah.
and over again. And then being like, wow, I just put 30 hours into making this thing. And the thoughts that come up, and you know, you're sitting with yourself or you're sitting with a community and having a lovely conversation, that's what creates meaning there. And I
Yeah.
think that's what you're offering also, is not just the product but the meaning and the connection behind the product. And I think that's really something really special.
Yeah, exactly. I also have, for example, workshops where some participants don't speak at all, but they really enjoy being there. Just doing something meaningful, because one of my projects, it's a very Dutch term, it's called krachttekens. We basically make blankets for youth who need support. So I notice people really enjoy having a reason to come together and do something for somebody else. So they don't have to take it home or finish it. They can just do something nice for a few hours and go home. I think it can draw out people who are feeling lonely without having to force them to do very extroverted things, because not everybody is like that.
Yeah, I love that. And
Yeah.
do you hold these via Zoom or are they in person?
I prefer in person. I do have online classes, but they're more for the do-it-yourself type of person. There's something different on doing it live, because then you can sense how the room is feeling and who needs some help and who is doing okay. And there's more space. There's more room to hold the space for each creativity. It's easier.
Yeah.
With Zoom, it's more one way, I guess.
Are your Zoom classes one-on-one?
No, usually I have groups.
Okay. Yeah.
I want to explore in the future different options, but for now it's those groups.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Gosh,
because then you also talk. It's nice.
Right. Yeah, you make friends that are local to you. I mean, there's such there's such a need for people to have not only a hobby for themselves, but also just, be a community of like-minded people around them. I think you're spot on that's really
and
what people
sometimes
are craving.
people need a reason, because I used to be a bit afraid of people, but having a reason to go out helps, because then you don't necessarily have to talk about yourself. You can talk about the quilt you're making.
Totally.
And then you have something to connect with, and it's sometimes easier.
Totally.
I noticed, because of my own past, I really focus on those sensitive people who don't seem to know how to connect. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Because I want to show them it's possible. It's just, you have to find your own way of going about it and your own people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just for anyone listening, you're in the Netherlands.
Yes.
And your time zone, just because, you're in is Central European time zone, and you offer online classes. So if anybody listening wants to join one of your online classes, that's
most of the online classes so far are like on demand. So they're just videos you can watch whenever you want.
Oh, that's really cool.
But I'm still
That's really
experimenting
cool.
actually with what works best. So if I'm open for suggestions as well, like it's just a lot of trial and error on because for me quilting with those all kinds of materials is sort of normal, but it's trial and error what people find interesting and where they need more help and where they can just steam on their own. Yeah.
Aside from the community aspect of it, I know we've talked previously, and last time we spoke, you were connecting with, I think it was a secondhand shop where you were getting your fabrics from. And I'm curious about, how that's going, where you're sourcing fabrics now, and also the fabrics you use for, say, the inside of the stuffing of the quilt and stuff like that.
It's like 3 different things so far. It's still the second-hand store in town where I live, the Restore. But they are very good when I have specific things I want. For example, because they are like a very big center. They like to make, I don't know the English word now, but they divide it in different categories. So when I want woolen blankets or canvas bags, they have it. And I have a workspace in a town called Almere, where I work at a recycling place, the Upcycle Centrum it's called. And they have as ambition to become circular. So they give entrepreneurs like me the opportunity to make something out of the trash that comes in and make it into value. And that's where I get a lot of my stuff too. And they also got me the assignment to be the creative inventor and the piles of textiles to be like, what value can I make from this? And also donations from quilters and other people. I also use half-made quilt tops and stuff like that, for example.
Okay.
Wow.
I've become a bit more selective because there's so freaking much of it around. But it's still good. I really like the challenge of designing products now that have meaning. I even don't really like the word products, but that's basically what it is. But meaningful projects.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about a quilted stuffed animal. I would love to know more about that, because my understanding of a quilt is the technique of sewing, but it's a blanket, a quilt. So
quilting is many things. It's people know it as a blanket, but basically it's the technique of sewing through 3 layers of fabric.
Okay.
That's historically what it means, but it has become a bit more broad, and now it's also making things out of scrap fabrics. It's like, that's actually patchwork, but quilting is like the whole thing. And when I started doing my business, I researched and talked to people what's stopping them from quilting. And one thing was people assuming it was only a blanket, but that's not true. Anything that's textile can be a quilt. So, and I really like nurturing the child in me. So I was started making toys.
So
this
cute.
one I called it's Dutch, de gevederde vriend, but it basically means the flying friend. And this is a prototype. I even got these stamped fabrics from some people who I gave a workshop. which is interesting how things come together sometimes. And I was thinking you can also use this as a memory quilt. When, for example, somebody's father dies, you can use like the shirts and the pants, and these are ties. So that this is how and in the inside there's like scraps, but there's also some sweater to make it soft. So like this, I'm designing the products based on different kind of fabrics. So it becomes a very, meaningful and also qualitative good product that's like memorable as well. It's not mass produced, really boring. It does,
Yeah.
I love that.
How do you know, just sort of an inventor question, how do you know the best thing to put inside of a quilt, or, you know, for stuffing? Because I know batting, you know, typically a quilt would use batting, but that's like often plastic or not nice to like pull from something else, right? So
trial and error, and it depends on trial and error. And also I have the kind of spirit that doesn't do boxes, so you just use what's there. Like, for example, I made a pot holder with an old blanket, and in the beginning I was like, it looks a bit strange, but then I was thinking, if you spill something, you can clean it up with the pot holder. So it's combination between trial and error and playing around, actually, and allowing yourself to also not finish projects when it doesn't work, and to not think like this is how it's supposed to go, but what feels soft. And also another interesting example is I was making a quilt, like a blanket, out of a woolen blanket. And sometimes it's stuck, because I was complaining to a friend who works a lot with like people who are disabled. And I was saying, the quilt is too heavy. I don't know how to, it's too heavy. It doesn't work. But she was like, heavy is good, because then it can calm people. Because sometimes people use like the heavy blankets, right? So
the
it's
weighted
like,
blankets.
Eureka. So woolen blankets, it's that, it's trial and error, talking to people, showing your products, and thinking not like this is what I want to make, but also let the fabrics and the materials speak for themselves in a way. Because also these feet, it was sort of happenstance, because it's a tie people wear. But the ends are too thin to actually quilt with, so I had those laying around, and I was like, that's very interesting, actually. It's just use them like this, because then it has an interesting visual effect. So playing around.
And for a young kid, that's nice, easy to hold. They can pull it around. Or I'm thinking like my dog would run around with that. She would love that. Yeah.
And it's a fun element. It makes it a funny quilt. And I really believe in joy, in sustainability, because the world is already depressing enough. So we shouldn't make the solution also depressing.
Totally. Absolutely.
That's a really nice
finding
quote.
the joy in the solutions. Absolutely.
Because in the beginning I was really stuck, because I thought, now I have a workplace in Almere and I'm becoming a serious entrepreneur. I have to make serious projects like laptop covers and stuff like that. But I really didn't like it. I got stuck and really angry with myself. But then I came out of it, because I really enjoy making toys like that. I have many more ideas of also combining functions, like a toy that's also a memory quilt, or a toy that's also helping with drafts, or a toy that's also, so that's making me more happy. To follow the joy is usually the way to go.
Definitely. I think we can relate, even with our business. We just recently had a whole big change, and because we were like, let's build the thing that we love. Let's build the thing we want. And I think that's a big change for sustainability, right? Because it's a change in our lifestyle. It's not all about this like capitalism, like push for growth, and this like kind of nasty, do whatever it takes to like claw to the top feeling. Like, it doesn't work in a new world and it doesn't work with female, like women in charge. When women lead, like we lead with our hearts. That's what we want to do, and that's the world we want to live in. And it's really nice to see that coming more and more in talking with entrepreneurs that are dedicated to a sustainable transition.
has to be worth living, right? In the Netherlands, we have zingeving. It's like meaning making. And to me, that's part of what I do. There's a lot of people in the Netherlands who cannot really participate in society because of trauma, or they're neurodivergent and they don't know how, or they are disabled. And they have a lot of talk about zingeving, but usually they make them do like useless stuff. But I think it's much more valuable to give them also, everybody needs that feeling they are doing something good or something meaningful. I think that will really help with a lot of things. Don't really know where I'm going with this.
There's such a sense of pride when you make something like, and you can show it off to people. You can, you can talk about it with people if you don't know what else to talk about. Like, look at this cool blanket I made.
And I think it shows as well. I think you can probably feel or sense it in a quilt. And like now I hear myself saying, I'm also very shy, and people laugh. But I used to be very shy as a person and not able to talk about my emotions at all. And quilts were a way for me to tell people I cared about them, because that was the only way I could. So I think bringing those kind of stories, I do a lot of storytelling as well, because I want to give people opportunities and ideas and how they can do something with their life that's different from the hardworking extroverted. You have to do this, you have to do a lot of that, you have to be this, you have to be amazing at everything. I want to just show them that something small can be very valuable if you do it with intentions and meaning and with a story in mind and stuff like that. I'm also not a perfect teacher. I don't teach perfection. I teach creative freedom in a way, and making them adequate, but with a lot of fun.
I think that's also kind of a part of this reframing, right? It's like, not only are we kind of redefining what like success is, and it's, we can now frame it in happiness, but also like not perfectionism.
Usually it doesn't matter anyway, usually, right? It's like my quilts are not really straight, but they're still very strong, so who cares?
I love that. Doesn't have to be perfect.
I feel that way about myself also. I'm not very straight, but I'm very strong.
It's not going well all the time, but I'm still functioning, so
that's all we can ask for sometimes.
That's what we got.
I completely resonate with
I
that.
want to make things feel easier.
Yeah.
Also for myself, but also for others.
In and of itself is so valuable. Life is really hard, and for somebody just to say, hey, I just want to make it feel, I just give you this small thing to make it feel a little easier. It's like, damn, thank you.
And why I like quilting for that is because it's something you can basically do in secret. So it can be a very easy step for people to start, like doing things that bring them joy, or to express their own individualism, because you can basically use the clothes you already have. And like basic sewing supplies are very cheap. You don't even need a sewing machine. It's something like, if you don't dare to tell people, you don't have to at first. It gives people like that very little step that sometimes all somebody can do, but still something that will make you feel more valuable and joyful. Because my first class is, for example, a coaster, and you can do it in 4 hours, but then you have your own coaster, and every time you drink tea, you're like, I made a coaster. And I think that can be the first step for people. I really focus on how to get people moving, because I was very stuck at a long time, and I know that small steps like that can be very, very significant.
Absolutely.
Not focus on the end goal, but focus on what you can do.
Do you usually not use a sewing machine for quilting?
Both. I kind of use a sewing machine more these days, because I have to work a bit quicker now, because I have so many projects I want to do, but I also still work by hand. And usually when I start teaching people, I do it by hand too, because usually creativity is already a bit nervous-wracking for people the first time. So I don't want to add the stress of a sewing machine. I want them to experience doing it by hand as well, because it's very relaxing as well. And it's also quieter. If you put like 8 people together with sewing machines, it's not like introverts, sensitive people friendly at all. So I usually
it's
teach by
not.
hand. And how they decide to continue at home, that's up to them. My online videos show both, but usually live I do like the introductions, at least I do by hand.
That's so nice and quiet. That was a big question I had, because you do work with neurodivergent people, and even just me sitting in my room by myself with my sewing machine, sometimes I'm like, whoa,
Need headphones.
I get a little overwhelmed. And if there was multiple, I think it would feel like kind of intense, you know? So that's nice.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes I have to have absolute quiet, and sometimes the sewing machine is like a white noise machine, but it depends a bit on how calm I am.
Fair.
You also have to understand the machine. So, and when you're teaching people, it's always good to not do everything at once. So first, it's good to have the creative freedom before you start adding like technical details. Usually the first quilt people made are also with very big stitches and they're not like straight at all. But I want people to feel like that success of the first quilt. And like gradually, I usually introduce more techniques.
That's perfect.
And usually it's very fun to watch people explore themselves as well, because you give them tips how to work with stretch, but they just start doing it, and it's always interesting to see. And I also learn how to work with it and how to explain things better as a teacher, because I see where people get stuck and how they solve their own problems.
Yeah.
And then it's again good to do
it.
Yeah.
How is it for you to step into a teaching role as somebody who is a proclaimed shy person, an introvert, to like then be like, I'm going to teach this skill? How does that feel?
Well, in a way, it helps because I can just give myself the role of teacher quilter Rianne, but I don't do it every day because that's too much. And in the beginning, I think I'm still a little bit some insecurities if I'm good enough, because I'm self-taught in a lot of things. But the more workshops you do, the more you notice that it's okay. And in the beginning, I was also struggling a little bit because you have a lot of quilt classes, but I'm not a typical quilt teacher because I don't even know that much technique if you compare to some others. I know enough, but I'm not like focusing on the technique and pinning straight and stuff like that. So, but it's something I had to get used to. That what I do is also valuable for the people that come to my classes. That's the challenge. But once I'm teaching, I love it actually. That challenge of finding ways to let people bloom creatively. I love that. Like, because everybody needs a different approach, and it's kind of intuitively. And that makes it always interesting, because the one is very big with the starts with this. You're like, whoa, but go ahead, we'll see where it ends. And some people open very quietly, you have to really motivate them to do a bit more. It's interesting.
Totally. Wow.
And it's very freeing in a way, because you have to let go of a lot of preconceptions if you teach the way I do, because I don't have like that much dogmas in how I teach. So but of course you want to lead people into confidence quilters. So it's interesting.
That sounds really, really fast. Are you and you're teaching in, is it Almere?
Yeah, Almere I only started recently, but I did some things in Ede and other areas.
Okay.
I'm actually looking for organizations to cooperate with. Yeah, so if somebody knows somebody, because that's usually easier, because then you have a group of people willing to quilt, because it's nice to work with introverted, shy people, but they're quite hard to find.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't go around.
No.
That's kind of the thing.
I also don't go to classes often, so I'm trying to find like partners to work with to easier access the group of people, because I also want to do it ethically. I don't want to like barge in. I want to do it carefully.
Yeah. Do you would it be easy to travel to a different part of the Netherlands to do that, or
I don't think so necessarily. I think it will help if you have a partner who knows where your group of people is who would like to learn how to quilt.
Yeah.
And how to frame it as well, because quilting is not yet very popular. So it depends on how you tell people as well. Because if you say we're going to make a memory quilt out of old clothes, people are like, oh, interesting. But if you frame it too much as quilting, people will think it's too boring.
Okay. Yeah.
So
there's some marketing there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
It really has a bad reputation still. That's what I'm working on as well. That's why I also do a lot of storytelling and being here and being on television and being on social media so much. So people can see that quilting doesn't have to be boring.
Totally.
But it can be much more than they thought.
It seems like, just kind of from watching on social media, it definitely seems like there is a growing group of the generation kind of younger than us, Gen Z, who's interested in kind of textile arts and crocheting and knitting. I haven't seen folks talk much about quilting though, but I think that there's totally an opportunity, because that generation is definitely more open to not only like, you know, these ideas of like wanting to create your own everything, you know, DIY everything, or also interested in kind of homesteading and just kind of being more in touch with the things that we're putting in our homes and our lives. So I think that there's definitely a lot of potential for growth and in what you're doing. And so it's really, really exciting to see. I think secretly,
I think quilting is already also a bit more popular than people think. But that depends on the definition you give to it, because a lot of those young textile artists use applique techniques a lot. And that's basically part of quilting.
Okay.
And it's a way of making garments stronger or warmer. But yeah, it's indeed a challenge of finding connections with those people and offer them the whole history. But that's also why when I wanted to make quilting more relevant, I ended in the sustainability and the social thing, because young people wanted more meaning. They didn't just want to make for the sake of it. But I think if we move away a bit more from the perfectionism and that it has to look perfect, it will help even more.
Totally. Yeah.
That it can be a way to hack your life, quilting. And that it can be a big blanket, but that it can also be something smaller.
Yeah.
Or something you add on
like
something or...
Yeah. I have a quilted like jacket that's basically my favorite jacket ever, and it's quilted. I love it. It is so cool, and I get so many compliments, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna learn how to quilt a jacket like this one day for myself. It was something I found, but yeah,
that's I think that's interesting. There's I think still a discussion going on in the quilting world whether you're allowed to cut up quilts into jackets, but I think it's good. At least they're used.
Allowed
yeah,
to.
exactly.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Creative freedom and stuff. I'm cutting up some quilt tops as well, and I'm a little bit nervous what my quilting friends think of it. But I think the freedom is very important to just break boundaries, because otherwise it can never be reclaimed.
Right. Yeah.
Because also I get a lot of critique because the fabrics I work with are not 100% pure cotton. And then you're not able to quilt with it. But then I'm like, it's stuck, so apparently I managed. But I understand what I mean, or there's lots of those rules, and that it has to be straight, or it has to be a certain length of stitching, but yeah, I think we have to be more open to the possibilities of using anything that's there. And it might mean that it will be like, won't last 100 years, but maybe it's okay if it only lasts 50. Then we can just love it and make a new one.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking if there are so many awful quality fabrics around that you can't quilt with, maybe we shouldn't produce them in that case.
That's a great...
Yes. Yeah.
But since they're here, I have to use them. So that's kind of my answer to those people saying you can't quilt with anything that's not cotton. I'm like, it's there.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's a rule that's meant to be broken. I think that's.
And also, it makes quilts much more alive if you use different kind of fabrics, because if you only use cottons, it's very flat.
Yeah.
But if you use also denim and the corduroy and stuff like that, it creates sort of sensory, very pleasing thing. I like it a lot. It makes it more alive.
Totally.
Yeah.
So
textures. Yeah.
Yeah. I think having like bits and pieces of corduroy is one of my favorite like sensory feelings. And I think that would probably be super cool. But also I think you're right. Courtney and I were just talking about this, how like these fabrics exist, right? Like we were talking about polyester and plastic made fabrics in particular. But they exist. There's like nothing we are going to be able to do about that. Should we just ignore them and just like put them in a pile to not rot? Like what do we we either like we need to use them or they're going to go to waste, and that's waste is the problem. So
or burn them, but it's also terrible.
Totally.
That's horrible. Just use them in the quilt.
I have twisted a little bit. Like I used to quilt with polyester as well, but some polyester is really awful, like really thin. And I use it as stuffing because indeed we have to do something with it. And now at least it's not in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to make jokes like that as well. I hope that people start thinking about it. Like polyester, we can't really do anything with it except stuff a toy.
Yeah, I mean
better
that's
than going
super
in the trash.
valid.
And then we can just put it somewhere in our house so it's not in the way and it's not polluting anything, and it's nice to look at, but maybe we shouldn't. But that's difficult.
Yeah,
kind of it's enormous amounts as well.
Yeah, it's problematic.
There are innovative techniques being developed, so that's a good thing, but I think still we need to reduce. We cannot, there's no way we can recycle everything that's produced into something useful.
Yeah.
Then you just consumerism, but then circular. I don't think that's better for the planet.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think we need to, like you're saying, to bring it full circle, we need to use less and then reuse what we use.
Otherwise you get situations where you recycle textiles into something that's also not usable. Because you can shred it into filling for auto car seats, for example, but how many seats do you need?
Right.
At some point. And
Yeah. But by giving people the skills and kind of empowering them to think creatively about the things that they're purchasing, using, what they can like work with, I think that's kind of the only option, right? Is just empowering them to have the knowledge of like ways to reuse the things that maybe
I kind of hope that I also teach people to work with specific fabrics, and I kind of hope that when they discover some fabrics are awful to work with, they become more conscious in their buying as well when they need something new.
Right. Just that knowledge of fabric types would totally change how you go shopping for clothing, like completely. If you're like, oh, this is rayon, like I have a story about that, like it was awful, it shredded or whatever.
Can't reuse that. I'm starting to get to that place actually. Like now that you say that, when I'm buying something, I'm like, how the hell am I going to fix this? If I get a hole in this, I wouldn't know how to patch it. Like I don't know how to patch. I mean, this I do, but like I don't have an example around me. But
and a lot of those t-shirts from the Primark t-shirts and stuff like that have very nice prints are usually so bad quality that you cannot even do anything with it. So it's very hard to turn it into a memory because it's just too thin often. You can, of course, but it's so much work that it makes sense to create better quality things.
Yeah, exactly. I have a pair of sweatpants from Primark that is just like, it literally just wears through. And I've been looking at it going, how do I reuse this? What do I do? I can't fix these. Can I darn them? I have no idea. Like I don't know.
If the whole fabric is see-through, the only thing is stuffing.
Yeah, exactly. So now I need to, think about it. And so now when I'm buying new clothing or secondhand clothing, indeed, I would start to think about like, what can I use this fabric for if I need to reuse it, and could I fix it? And that was a mindset shift for me, even as somebody that is conscious about what I buy. And I was like pretty proud about it. I was like, Tom, I'm thinking about my clothes. Tom's my partner. He was like, okay.
I had that too at some point, that I usually have secondhand clothing, even I wear stuff that gets donated because it's still good. But if I buy something new, usually very nice dresses, I only buy them if I can turn them into a quilt later. If I'm like, these fabrics are interesting, I would like them to have to use later.
Yeah.
So then I'm like,
yeah. It changes your whole buying perception, right? It's, yeah.
So when I wear them, like I usually wear those things also years. And when they're not mendable anymore, or I changed body type or something like that, I can make it into a quilt. And that also tells a story again, because then if you look at quilts made in that era, to say so, you see those fabrics in all the kind of quilts you make. And that's also a way to create connections on a more symbolic level. Because then your dress and the shirt of my boyfriend and the shirt of my grandfather are used in different quilts, connecting the good vibes you have around those people, and also the people who get those quilts. It sort of connects in an energetic way, and I think there's something interesting in that too. That creates more meaning.
Yeah.
And then when I am with my mom and I talk about old quilts we made, we're like, that's what I used to wear when I was like 5 or something like that. A lot of curtains my mom made are turned into quilts now because we all grown.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow. I like it.
And also by using those motherly curtains, like my mother put a lot of mother vibes in it. If I give them to somebody else, they also get those motherly vibes. Maybe they didn't have a mom, so I can like give it on. And I think that's something interesting in that too.
Yeah. That's magic.
Yeah, that's the magic of quilting as
witchery.
Yeah. But I think there has to be more room for that as well, because it's how we create meaning.
It is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There is like more spiritual backing to what I do sometimes. So I think it helps.
Yeah.
To also not lose focus on values and stuff like that. Because you know why everything connects, and then it's usually good. Okay.
Yeah. It's really beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for bringing that and for teaching that, and for like passing that along, and holding a tradition that is important for our world, that will continue even when there is no power in the world and the apocalypse comes, and people will people will have this physical, tangible skill.
And then the needle will become like the new gold and diamond.
Collect them now.
Just might.
Yeah.
So they break sometimes, and then people are like, I found some thread. But that's also one thing I also like about the history of quilting, is that there's not really one history, because I know people from all over the world, and when I talk about what I do to them, almost everybody has a mother or a grandmother who did some type of quilting, like Colombia, Iran, Bangladesh, India, the Netherlands, Germany. There's not one history, which means that from like maybe when civilization started, people had scraps and they wanted to make it into something that's useful and beautiful all over the world. I think that brings connection as well, to share techniques and to share that urge, because beauty has always been important, and meaning in a very practical way as well, like beauty in every day. So all the days you have are more joyful, and it's not something you can break, but it's something you can teach. And it's something that has no rules, because it has been everywhere already. You can just inspire people and show them options. Yeah.
That's a really nice way to look at it.
I love it. Wow. So for folks who are interested in learning more, how can they find you? How can they kind of get in touch?
My name is Kickass Quilts. I am pretty findable on Instagram and Facebook. You can always send me messages. I also have kickassquilts.org. You can find more information about the projects and also access to the classes, but you can also always send me a message about it because I'm reshuffling the website a little bit. Okay. And there's also a newsletter if you want to stay up to date, because now I'm really delving into the creative inventor side, but I think in a few weeks time I'm going to do more classes. But now it's a little bit on a slow burner because I wanted to not do too many different things. I wanted to believe in the power of also invention and make the stuffed toys, and after that start teaching. But I will share what I do on social media like daily. I share a lot.
Nice.
So you can follow my process.
Yes, definitely.
And ask questions.
Absolutely. And you can find Kickass Quilts on our directory.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Also, I will change the text a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about it. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's it for now. People can, I'm pretty responsive, like not always, because there's no hurry, but I will always get back to people who email me or message me. So if you have questions or you want to know more or something, you feel free to ask. I'm here to help.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
And I always love seeing stuff you make.
Oh yeah, gotta send the finished results for sure.
Yeah.
Also, if it's not based on my classes, I just love seeing how people reuse old textiles and clothes.
Nice. Yeah.
And I usually share it as well because I want to inspire people, and that's by showing more than what I do, because everybody has their own touch.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Rianne. Thank you. Thank you for letting us pick your brain, and thank you all for watching.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, we'll talk to you
next
time. Bye.